Good evening. Welcome back to my Astroimaging Journey channel. Tonight I'm going to go through what's actually my third attempt using the new telescope rig. I was waiting on my T6i to get astro converted. It finally came back, but unfortunately it didn't come back until after I had already gotten the telescope, and of course we had some clearer skies, so you know, we got to play, right? So I had to use this camera in order to try to image the sky, so I couldn't do any real videos. So tonight I want to go through, you're going to see me set it up and go through my balance. I'll try to fast forward through that for you. But basically I just want to go through a couple things that I found out there on the interwebby tubey thingies. Yeah, I know it's called the internet. And basically we're gonna hope and pray, cross everything we got, and that the stuff works. It's a little cloudy right now. I got some wispy clouds. It was kind of hot today, but it has cleared up over what it was. So hopefully these clear up enough that I can get some imaging in tonight. But at a minimum, I want to get some darks, and if I get set up early enough and I can get some lights, that would be great. But we'll see how that goes. So let me get this thing set up for you. Okay, there you have it. Roughly 6 minutes to carry everything out and at least get it staged. What we have here is the Celestron CGEM II German equatorial mount, the Celestron EdgeHD 11-inch, an Orion Starshoot auto guider with the Orion 60mm guider scope, as well as back here, a little hard to see, but it's the Celestron StarSense auto align. I do have the AC adapter. It's on order, so when that comes, we'll be able to quit using the battery unit, and I'll be able to, use a power strip or a Y cable so that I can run both my laptop and everything off of that. The T6i Canon has been astro converted via Spencer's. I had them remove the anti-aliasing filter as well as the IR cut filter, and then in place put in the visible plus H alpha filter, and then also an extra charge to have the sensor cleaning re-enabled and reattached. So that should be ready to go now. Like I said earlier, clouds are iffy at this point, but hopefully we'll be able to get something going tonight. And yeah, it's 85 degrees, a little bit humid, so yeah, I'm sweating a little bit. But let me finish getting this hooked up, and then we'll go through how the last two times, just a little quick on that. The first day I came out here, I basically did what I did here, and did what I am going to show you, as far as a rough polar line, and I wanted to do unguided. I wanted to see, not having a polar scope, a quick cell phone technique for a rough polar line, no guiding, and I just wanted to see how well it would track on its own. And I got between 1 and 2 minutes. I did 100, I stepped it up 30, 60, 90, 120, 240, 360 seconds, and somewhere between 120 and 240 it was the sweet spot. 240, they just started to get a little elongated, so maybe oh, I did do 180, excuse me, so it was between 120 and 180. 120 was where it was going to be, but there was another thing that I had to do before that that took most of the night, and that was getting the star sense aligned to the OTA. Basically, Celestron has a good video on what to do about that, and the instructions. Basically, all you're doing is, this thing has a certain axis and this one has an axis, and you want them to be in alignment. You don't have to tweak this at all. Basically, you let it do the auto align. It will swing around to 3 or 4 stars, do a plate solve, and then turn around, and once that's completed, you'll want to align that to the tube. So basically, you point to a star, a bright star, and maybe what is that, our ARTU, I'm not sure, it's over there. I can't remember the name of it right now, apologies. Or there was Kochab, I believe I might be mispronouncing that. It was over there. That's the one I used. And basically put the star diagonal on the back, use an optic, and once that's pointed at that star, you use your hand controls and you align the star into the center of your eyepiece as best you can, and then there's a course drive function first, and then you do you hit enter, then it wants you to do a fine. Basically, it turns the motors just a little bit slower, seem like about half speed, and then once you get what you feel is centered, you hit enter. It recalibrates and says, okay, this is what my center of view is based on that plate, does what it feels is the offset between the axis of here and the axis of this optical, and then you should be rocking and rolling. That night I went up to I think I actually left it on Kochab and just let it track, and like I said, between 120 and 180 seconds is where I started to get the elongation. So one minute I didn't feel too bad, especially not being polar aligned. It was just a rough polar alignment, and it seemed to do pretty well. If it had been polar aligned better, I don't know. The elongation seemed to be all across the field and not on the edges, so I'm pretty sure that was a tracking issue. But again, I'm fairly new to this, so that's trial and error learning, and I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me. The second night I took it out, I wanted to do the guiding. I wanted to see how well that would guide, and see if I could get longer exposures. And lo and behold, yeah, I was able to get up to 5-minute exposures without an issue. The graph on PhD was, was hopping pretty well. It was between -1 and +2, or excuse me, -2 and +2. Again, wasn't polar aligned. I didn't know about the drift alignment. But just doing this little cell phone trick I'm going to show you here in a minute, seemed to get it pretty close, enough that I was able to guide for 5 to 6 minutes without an issue. So I was kind of happy with that. Night 3 actually, yeah, sorry I said this was night 3, this is actually night 4 now. Simply because night 3 was a total bust, to be honest. I came out here thinking, I got the camera on it now, I can use backyard EOS, I can really dial in the alignment between the star sense and the OTA, and I swung around, let it do its thing, and I was completely messed up. I thought I was on the right star and I wasn't, so then when I aligned to that, it was just, it was all me. It was all me. So that took me about another half hour, 45 minutes to diagnose, correct, and then once I got that done and actually back on to another star and was able to better determine where I was at, then I tried to do the drift alignment, and that's where things went awry. I clearly wasn't reading it right. I had this thing pointing way over there. I'd get behind it and try to look at Polaris, and the center's here and Polaris is sitting over here. So I tried and I tried and I tried, and after 2.5 hours total out here, I finally said to heck with it. I really didn't want to have to be on the ground looking up, trying to polar align, spending half an hour, 45 minutes, wasting time that we could be imaging. So I have gone ahead and ordered the QHY PoleMaster to hopefully quicken that process. But for a quick polar alignment, for when we're setting up, still kind of light out. What I'm going to show you here in a second is what I do, and like I said, the first 2 nights got it pretty darn close. The 3rd night, that was all me trying to dial it in and totally screwing it up. So let me demonstrate that to you now, and we'll get on that. Okay, so what we have here is an app on the phone. If I can get it in here, just a second. There we go. Called Sky Eyes. Excuse me, Sky Eyes. So as you can see, it's a planetarium app, and move it up, down, uses the internal sensors, including the compass, to determine where you're pointing at in the sky. So what I've found is, if you turn it this way, excuse me, and you can rotate it down, you might not be able to see it in the video, but right there, right in there, is the South Celestial Pole, and it's inside those 2 rings. Yeah, looking at the video now, it's a little bit of glare. So in there you have the Latin long crosses. So the celestial pole, try to get the South Celestial Pole right in the middle of that inner circle. But how are we going to accomplish that? We got this dust cap right here, right? It's nice and flat. We can take the cell phone and put it right on there And as I can see, let me take it out of this case. Obviously you can't see it there. Seeing an extremely strange magnetic field, probably because of the metal in here. Let me try to correct this real quick and I'll be right back. And we're back. So basically I had to recalibrate, twist the phone in all types of good motions and get this thing back into running order. I know you can't probably see it on here. I'll try to zoom in digitally in post-processing, but basically right there is the center of the inner ring, and the south celestial pole is down here. So basically I need to tilt this down and move it over. The nice thing about this is these things can be done single-handed, so I can keep this on here, and let's see if we can get this dialed in. Alright, I'm going to call that good right now. Like I said, it's just a rough polar alignment. Hopefully we're going to retry the PhD alignment, but of course we have to wait till it darkens a little bit. So what I got to do now is make sure everything's balanced. I'm going to call that one good. I guess I guessed right. Wow. Sorry you didn't get to see what I was doing up top here. I was not zoomed out. Let me show that again. So I just basically put these on willy-nilly just to get them on there. I guessed pretty darn close. Looks pretty balanced. Maybe just a hair on the weight end, but that's okay. That'll help clear any backlash. Get this line back up. And then our deck, you can see now it's a little bit towards the camera side. Let's get that corrected a little bit more. All right. And we'll call that good. These clutches, they do seem a little sticky. I mean, not gummy or sticky, you know, just they turn freely, but you can just feel that there's a little maybe pressure to them or something. You know, they don't spin like they're on ice, you know, skates on ice. Maybe that's by design, I'm not sure. Alright. Make sure everything's nice and locked down. Okay, now once, I mean, we're getting a little dark here, so basically what I'm going to do is get all my cabling hooked up. I don't have any good cable management right now. That is on the to-do list. So I'm going to get everything hooked up, and since really don't need the camera for the alignment, can at least get my dark started. I'm gonna shoot for 4-minute subs tonight, if the weather cooperates. Looks like it's clearing. Do have a couple wisps coming through, but we'll see. At least I'll be able to start building my dark library. You know. But anyways, let me get the rest of this. Well, while we got a little bit of light, why don't I do one more thing? There's a couple things I wanted to show. Basically, sorry, bugs are out tonight. Focusing is a big issue, obviously. If we're out of focus, doesn't matter how much data we got, it's just going to look like crap. So I found I forget what the site is, but let me adjust this camera. Okay, that should be better. So focus obviously is a huge concern for us. We want to make sure we're in focus. If we're not in focus, it doesn't matter how much data we collect, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So let's, you know, did I want to spend, you know, $25, $30, $40, $50? I saw ranges for the batting off masks all over the place. The live view using Backyard EOS, if you're too far out of focus, it's real hard to get the full width half max to display, or even anything to display really. So I decided to use the PDFs that I found online and create my own batting off mask. So that is what we have here. Hopefully you can see that. Try to use the table as a backdrop. Basically It's nothing more than a 99-cent sheet, large sheet of black construction paper, heavy duty. Took the PDFs, printed them out. It ended up having to use 4 sheets of paper, and that you then had to align, and then X-Acto tool out all the grooves. Created some little tabs here and a ring so that hopefully, I haven't test fitted this yet, so let's do this. Again, cross our fingers, hopefully it will work. It's a little bit on the small side. And it doesn't exactly sit center. But again, for some of my time and for 99 cents, if it works, I'll be more than happy. We will see how that goes later on. Hope that wasn't supposed to be on there. There we go. Basically, it's still spring-ish. Just don't want all the pollen and everything to get on in there. So I'm just keeping this on here. I do have the dew shield that I will put on later once I'm ready to start imaging. But the last thing I wanted to check out while we still have a little bit of light here. My t-shirt rig. I am really hoping that this will help me do my flats. I have watched all the videos. You know, you can build your light box, you can buy the custom ones for several $100s, if not more. The cheap way to go, basically take a couple t-shirts out of your closet, stretch them over the front, wrap them, take your flats. What I have seen even in those videos is you end up with some crinkles because, you know, t-shirt's not going to be flat, and then you're trying to wrap it around a round surface, and you know that can create little wrinkles which can throw your date off a little bit. I'm speculating on that obviously, but to me it would seem logical. So basically what I did here was I got a 16 by 20 stretched canvas. I cut the canvas off because the back is yellowed, only the front is white. And then to that I also purchased t-shirt fabric. Both of these were obtained at local Joann Fabrics. Nope, they are not a sponsor, but hey, if this works, then I will give them a shout out for having the right material. This was something that I thought up on the spot. If somebody else has done this, I apologize. I'm not trying to steal credit. You know, I stretched it over. I didn't make it real taut. I gave it a little bit of spring here, a little bit of give. Want to make sure it was oversized. You know, I could have went 11 by 14, but this 11-inch optic, so it probably wouldn't have fit over it. but since we're going to be pointing upwards at approximately 90 degrees to the sun, you know, we're going to be fairly straight up, or you know, this would probably be the most extreme angle we would go. And as you saw, I can lay it on there. I get good even tension all the way across. I don't get any of those wrinkles. I think this may actually work for my flats. So we shall see the next opportunity I have. Supposed to be rainy pretty much for the next week, so yeah, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that. May have to, yeah, we'll see. One of the things I forgot to mention earlier, the StarSense Auto Shoot does plug into the mount using the aux port and is powered from the mount. And obviously, for those of you that know, this is redundant, but for the beginners, it might be helpful. The Orion Starshoot has USB cable, goes to the laptop or computer, whatever you're using, and then it also has a cable that comes over to the autoguider port on the mount. Now you probably aren't seeing it, but I'm having to lift my feet up a lot. One of the things I'll be doing here shortly, cleaning up my cable over here. The other day I almost pulled the laptop off the table simply because I tripped over my own cord. Cable management, not only on your optical equipment and everything that attaches to it being key, cable management on the ground as well. You can have a bad night if you're using a decent laptop. Like, let's say you just happen to have an Alienware and you're taking it out there for your imaging session for whatever reason, instead of using a cheaper, older laptop, and you kind of trip and fall and bust it. I think we'd all have a bad day at that point. Okay, I know we're starting to get dark. It doesn't seem that dark out here. I do see the one star up there. One over there, so might actually be able to get some imaging in tonight. If nothing else, hopefully practice the drift alignment. Anyways, one thing I forgot to mention, that with that drift alignment issue I was having, one thing that might have been a contributing factor, if you saw earlier, I made it a point to come down here and tighten up this plate. Celestron has a nice little tray to hold your eyepieces and other various items. It doubles as a tensioner for the legs to help keep them spread out. I did not have that tight that night, and when I broke this thing down to take it inside, the legs were a little loose. So that might have caused a little bit of play in the assembly. Little, I don't want to say flexure. That's more up in this area, but yeah, the OTA's area. But that could have been a contributing factor as to why things just weren't working out for me. But I'm nice and tight there today. I'm roughly polar aligned via the cell phone. I am pointed north. Now I just have to wait, hope that these few clouds I see over here pass me by. I am seeing clear stars over this way, so hopefully we'll get something accomplished tonight. Stay tuned. Alright, welcome back. Basically, what you're going to see here is the failed attempt to capture some data, get the PhD working, basically wow, I say basically a lot, don't I? Anyways, I had a feeble attempt to get everything working. The clouds just did not cooperate, and I had some troubles misinterpreting what I was seeing. You'll see, for example, in the preview section of PhD, you see the screen kind of white out. I thought that was an exposure issue as opposed to cloud cover, so I misinterpreted that and a few other things in Backyard EOS. So this was basically a failed attempt at capturing any data. The exposure length of 4 minutes was also too long for the conditions overnight. So in the end, it basically was for naught. But like everything, our failures are our learning experiences, or rather opportunities. So with this, I'm just going to speed this video up like it has been to super speed so that you can just watch, giggle if you already know all this part and you want to get a good laugh at me, that's perfectly fine. If not, you can move on to another video, and we're going to call this one done for the night. I'll finish editing a little bit later and post this up there and get the next one ready. Thank you for your time and patience. I know these videos have been a little lengthy. I'm going to work on breaking them out. So for tonight, this video really should have been broken up into probably 5 or 6 shorter videos and have those posted individually as well as the full length that you've been watching, hopefully through till now. So that's my goal going forward, is to break them up into more digestible chunks with a full video of all of them put together for those that want to suffer through the longer versions. So thanks again for sticking with me. Thanks for following me on this journey. Good luck. Clear skies. Until next time.